I think if it wouldn't be for Norman and Howard, the whole Rainbow Run wouldn't exist.
Well, no, it wouldn't.
We had a cafe in Fishgarden. Howard used to come in there on a regular basis, and I don't know if you've noticed Howard, he's quite large. Well, he was one of our good customers. And he happened to mention about it, I don't know, 3 or 4 years back, and he was going out to Africa on this thing. And I said, God, that sounds good. What are you doing then?
It originally started when I was marshalling on the WRC World Rally Championship, and we were sleeping in a Series Land Rover, and this chap came up to me and said, "You must be a Land Rover fanatic." He said, "You'd get on well with my old man. He's going down to the Gambia on a thing called the Plymouth to Banjul Challenge."
The premise was that we had a vehicle that cost less than £100, and we spent £15 doing it up for the rally, and then drove 4,000 miles completely unsupported down to Banjul. Bit sort of like a sort of poor man's Paris-Dakar.
You take an old Land Rover or whatever it is, you fill it full of materials, parts, whatever needs to be taken, you take it down there, you deliver it to the source it's required. That's the bottom line.
And Norman said, "We could do that." And it kind of grew from there, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that wouldn't it be a good idea if normal people did something like this.
I'm absolutely brilliant in pulling Land Rovers out of soft sand.
I'm obsessed with Land Rovers. I'm obsessed with travelling. I love travelling.
I'm involved in some of the cross-country stuff, particularly things called hill rallies.
I have been associated with some off-road organisations and been off-roading and been upside down in many vehicles on many occasions.
It's a holiday for us, or an adventure.
In a way.
Yeah, an adventure for us.
I've never really travelled in my life at all. We never had holidays as kids, so this is completely different to me as well.
At the height of the Vietnamese War, I was in Cambodia, and it was great because there were no tourists.
We're the mugs that go out in the middle of the night in the rain and the snow and the hail and the winds when nobody else will fly.
What possible stretch of imagination can you describe us as normal?
Well, yeah. It just seemed like a good thing at the time. It might be important now to go back to the beginning. The beginning was that we had, my wife's a teacher, and in the Union magazine was an article from Glyn Jones, who was the woman who runs the charity down in the Gambia, saying that in the late 90s there'd been some sort of natural disaster, and it washed away loads of schools and the infrastructure in the Gambia, or part of the infrastructure. And her and her husband had set about raising funds to put these schools back together again. So I'd read the article, I said to Howard, this seems like a good cause, we're going down there anyway, let's phone these people up and see if we can bring anything down to them, you know, whatever we can do. So we gave them a call and they said, "Oh yeah, this is great, you know, whatever you can bring down would be just wonderful." The Land Rover that we chose, that we took in the beginning, was just the chassis, a gearbox and little else, and then we built it almost from the ground up.
Converted it from right to left-hand drive, didn't we?
Yeah. We also got a bit of sponsorship from Land Rover, which came in handy. That was £500 worth of spares. But the spares went there and we didn't use them. I mean, they just went there as part and parcel of the Land Rover gift to the charity.
And you have to also say at this point that Norman is ex-Remy. So if you want to change a Land Rover gearbox in the middle of a field and it's night time and freezing and you're up to your neck in mud, Norman's your boy, because he's done it.
And just for those who don't know what Remy is?
It's the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. I was 9 years in the Remy as a mechanic.
We put it on the weighbridge before we left, 4,820 kilos. And the absolute maximum all-up weight for a Series 3 Land Rover is 1,000 kilos.
We literally threw everything in the back, closed the door and drove it down the road. I mean, it hadn't even been out for a test ride. I mean, you know, the farthest it had been was the coal yard down the road here to get a bottle of gas. It was easy. There was no major difficulties. I think we had something like about 15 things went wrong with the Land Rover. The steering relay arm dropped off. And we did set fire to the thing as well. We were driving along one day and the top of the battery was on fire.
And we did break the chassis on it.
Yeah, I mean, you know...
normal things.
But she got there. And she pulled out just about everybody else that was bogged in sand and things like that. So when we turned up at Banjul, Glyn and her husband turned up, Ian, and Modu, who was their local sort of representative, came to the hotel, and we took him out and showed him the Land Rover, opened the back and said, all this is yours, whatever you want to do with it, do what you want, take it away, dispose of it in any way you want. You can sell it, you can use it, you can do what you want. Oh, by the way, you can have the Land Rover. So Glenn said, well, we can't afford to buy the Land Rover off you. No, we said, we're going to give you the Land Rover. Well, she said, you've got no idea how much wealth you've just given us to do the work that we're doing down here.
Shine can spend it as fast as we can raise it, and more power to their elbow, because they're doing sterling work with what little we can give them. We had a postcard from Shine for Christmas 2007, 2008, and they'd broken the front axle on the Land Rover which we left them, and we tentatively looked at getting a new replacement axle down to them, and it was going to cost as much as driving it down there. So Norman was sitting on one end of my settee, and we sort of looked at one another and said, we'll take one down there. And from there the Rainbow Run was born.
We were getting funds up for a creche, and the creche was in the teacher sort of training school, and local girls come in from the community, learn to be teachers, but the majority of them got young children, so it was important to have a small building somewhere, so that the children could be looked after, so they could go to class without the children being a nuisance in the class with them.
In 2008, Howard approached me with a Mission Impossible to get a Series 2 Land Rover, which he'd found in a hedge, into an MOT-worthy condition in about 10 days. So, okay, I took the job on, and before you know it, I was asked, would I like to join the crew and go down as a mechanic for the team?
I'm Howard's other half. When he went the first time, I missed him terribly and decided that if he ever do anything like that whatsoever, he wouldn't do it without me.
When we left, we had to leave poor old Norman behind because he had commitments here, and we took a Sankey trailer with a front and a rear axle, an engine and a gearbox. So they had 2 more Land Rovers and the spares necessary to keep them running.
Before leaving Fishguard Harbour, I put my Land Rover and Sankey trailer on the weighbridge, and I came in just under 5 tonne, which is a bit naughty, but with the amount of equipment that we were carrying down there, that's what we had to put up with.
So that was the second run. This third run now is we're taking a bus down. They want a bus to take children from different villages to the capital and so on. And we're also taking, as you know, loads and loads of Land Rovers and loads of spares and bits and pieces.
We're not delivering all these vehicles down to Shine thinking that they're now going to be operators of a huge fleet of Land Rovers, because that's not the purpose. If they want to break them up and sell them as spares, if they want to sell them as going concerns, it's just currency for them. Yeah. It's a means for us to get down there with all the equipment that we're hoping to take. But the vehicles themselves, they do with them what they will. They could sell them for scrap. It's just a method of them generating capital down in the Gambia.
You've got to be a maverick to do it. And it is the people who are the idiots who get things done. The people who do the impossible.
Consider what the rest of the stuff I do in my life, I think it follows along a path. People expect it from me these days.
Well, I was going to go
2009.
Yes, 2009. And then health problems got in the way and I couldn't go, and job problems, and it just made it too difficult, so I backed out. So this time when Howard said, hey, come in this time then, you're retired now, you've only got a part-time job, they can't sack you from that. I thought, Dagmar said yes.
I've never had to do anything as long distance as this, and it's an opportunity to do something that I would never ever get to do otherwise.
the day you all went up to get the Land Rover, I started thinking, well, what am I doing here for a month where I could be there travelling with you lot? And I think it's a good idea, you know, to help the kids as much as we can.
I know Glenn, I know Ian. I met the kids in the Gambia, and it'd be just nice to go back and see what they did from the last bit of what we left behind for them.
I won't have that many more chances to do something like this. I've never done anything like it before, and if I don't get on and do it, I'll find it's too late.
About 3-4 years ago, and I was fairly committed to go on to the run. And then I had a couple of heart attacks, and a triple bypass, and so they all went without me. So this time I'd go.
Personally, I'd like to think this is the last run for me. I think I'd like to move on to something else now. I think that I think Shine can get on along a lot better now with all the stuff we've given over the past few years. I'd like to do an expedition in its own right next.
Yeah.
Maybe with the Land Rover or something.
Count me in. I'll be there.